For 5 years now, we have been saying to the people of this country that they are being misled by the Democratic Labour Party. Being misled. And being misled on fundamental issues. Now, I am not an economist. Not at all. I am just a lawyer. But a gentleman named Ryan Strawn, one of Barbados' finest economists, wrote an article in the last few days. And I just want to read to you a few lines from this article. He says, from the financial year 2008 to 2009 and onwards, the significant deterioration in public finances has added an estimated $1.744 billion to gross government debt purely from excessive spending. Now remember please that the Barbados Labour Party lost the election on January 15, 2008. So when this brilliant young economist Ryan Strawn talks about the significant deterioration in public finances from the year 2008-2009, he is talking about deterioration that has been supervised, if not entirely caused, by David Thompson, Frondell Stewart, Chris Sinclair, and his band of merry men. But he goes further. You will have heard the Democratic Labour Party saying day after day is the international recession. Don't blame us. It's the international recession. But is it not true that in the year 2007, Owen Arthur predicted that tough times were going to be ahead for the Barbadian economy? And if Owen Arthur predicted that in 2007, it must mean that the DLP came into government fully aware that there were going to be tough times ahead. But the difference between the DLP and the Barbados Labour Party is that we are not in the habit of burying our heads in the sand. We are in the habit of looking for solutions to the plight that the people of this country face. That is what we do. But the Dems, having been warned that tough times were ahead economically, they buried their heads in the sand and are now complaining every day, it is the international recession, it's the international recession. We have always maintained that that was not true. And the Dems said, don't mind Owen Arthur and Clyde Maskell and Mia Motley and Dale Marshall. They just want to them just pass the government buildings and wink at the Treasury. They said that. But Ryan Strawn in his article said this, and I am quoting, we will hear a lot about how the international economy has been unkind to Barbados in recent years and that resources were scarce. This is one of the biggest myths that many in the public repeat ad nauseum without any reference to the facts. He goes on, government revenues between the financial year 2008 and 2009 and the current financial year have averaged $2.442 billion, which is considerably more resources than the previous administration ever received. Now, I'm not in the habit of reading from things when I give my presentations on the platform, but this is important. Ryan Strawn has said that the talk about the international recession is nothing more than a myth, and that this Democratic Labour Party administration, for the 5 years that they were in power, had significantly greater revenues than the Barbados Labour Party administration that served for 14 years. Now, there's that saying, to whom much is given, from him much is expected. So if this Democratic Labour Party received more revenue than any previous Barbados Labour Party administration, one would expect that you could look around Barbados and see the fruit of those revenues. I want you to look around. On the DLP posters, you will see a lot of mock-looking buildings. Buildings that, you know, they look really strange because some of them really don't even exist. Do you know that the only thing that the Democratic Labour Party can bring to the people of Barbados as being what they got from all of these increased revenues is 4 roundabouts? This is no laughing matter. I want you to think very carefully about what the Democratic Labour Party has been able to do in Barbados for the last 4 years in terms of infrastructure. And when you have gone from North Point in St. Lucie to South Point in Christchurch, when you have gone from East Point in St. Philip to the Deepwater Harbour in Barbados, you will find that the only things that the Democratic Labour Party can claim to have begun and completed are 4 roundabouts. Now I ask you, is 4 roundabouts an adequate measure of their stewardship of this country over the last 5 years? Is 4 roundabouts to be seen as an acceptable measure of development in this country? Barbados has benefited under the Barbados Labour Party from a new Coast Guard building, a virtually rebuilt airport, significant investments in the seaport, an expanded highway. We have a new Supreme Court building, facility after facility after facility, road after road after road, up and down this country. We have had the Rural Development Commission and the Urban Development Commission making important changes to people's lives. But all that we have to show for the last 5 years is 4 roundabouts. And they dare to come to you in this election and say that they want a second chance. You know, if you think about childhood, you know, when somebody come and say they want a second chance, it's generally because they wasted the first one. Think about it. When somebody come and say they want a second chance to play cricket, it means that the first time they played, they didn't play well. They want a second chance to join the team. They want a second chance. A second chance generally means that you did not perform the first time. So, you need to say to the Democratic Labour Party that by any measure, what they have presented to the people of this country is not what a proud nation like Barbados deserves, because we have had better between 1994 and 2008. When we talk about bringing Barbados a better tomorrow, it is because we as a society have become so pauperized in the last 5 years that the statistics show that the poverty level of Barbados is higher today than at any time in the last 25 years. The poverty level in this country, instead of getting lower, has been increasing. And it is no wonder. It should not be a mystery to you and I why that is happening. When we came to government in 1994, we found unemployment at 26%. Owen Arthur said job number 1 was jobs. He created over 30,000 jobs. And when we lost the election mere 5 years ago, unemployment was at 6.5%. However, in the last 5 years, 16,000 Barbadians have lost jobs. And when Barbadians lose jobs, it means they can't send school to children, they can't pay the bills, far less pay the mortgage, they cannot support their families, and those families begin to feel the level of poverty grabbing at their ankles and up their knees and to their waist until eventually those families fall below the poverty line. And that is what we mean when we say that the level of poverty in Barbados has increased to an unprecedented level over the last few years. Now, the DLP has said Frandel Stewart has said that we just talk numbers. We are only interested in arithmetic. We are not interested in the society. I want Frandel Stewart to tell anybody in this crowd tonight what kind of society we have when Bajans are starving. What kind of society do we have when families are neglected, when families are not properly fed, when they're not getting proper health care, when they can't afford to pay for their medication, when they cannot afford to keep a roof over their head? What kind of society do we have in Barbados today? The DLP idea of a society is an environment where school children no longer pay bus fare. Now, I'm not going to waste time quarreling about that. Anything that will ease the burden of poor people, the Barbados Labour Party will support. We would probably have done it a different way, but it's going to help poor people, so we're done with that quarrel. But that measure alone, especially when you consider that having given the children free rides on the bus, you then increase the bus fare on the parents. Then I have to say that I defy the Democratic Labour Party candidate for this area to tell us how, as a society, we are better off. If you give it in one hand and take away twice as much in the next, you have not done anybody in Barbados a favor. You have done them a bitter and painful hardship. That's what you've done them. We had a tropical storm named Thomas, and housetops were blown off all across this country. Houses destroyed all across this country. And in my constituency, I apologize for speaking about St. Joseph, but I know it best. In my constituency, dozens of those houses are beginning to fall apart because this administration has not done a single thing to repair them. What has happened? Those families have had to go and scotch at relatives. You know, if your family come and stay at you for a week or two is all right. But we now into year number 3, and those families who were dislocated by Hurricane Thomas are still scotching at relatives, are forced in many instances to sleep on the floor, are forced to watch their homes fall apart because of the elements, and they are now worse off today than they were before Hurricane Thomas. Is that what Barbadian society is meant to represent? Is that an administration that takes the business of taking care of people's needs seriously? I argue that the answer to that question must be a resounding no. What instead the Democratic Labour Party has done is to create in Barbados almost an entire generation of people who have to line up cap in hand for a handout from a ministry of social care. Barbadians have always been a proud people, and the people of Ellerton I know are proud. The people of St. George, whose blood races through my veins, have always been proud. But we are now reduced to a state where people have to line up outside Steve Blackett's office to get money to pay their light bills. Working class Barbadians who up until a few years ago had a job and could hold their heads up with pride must now go to Steve Blackett on their knees and beg for assistance in paying a light bill, beg for assistance in paying a crippling watering bill, now relying extensively on a welfare system, when in truth and in fact, the aim of any government should be to stop poor people from being poor. So when I say that the Democratic Labour Party has presided over the pauperization of a 21st century Barbados, It is because by any measure we are worse off by far today than we were before. How many of you have had to go into your bank account month after month over the last 5 years and pick away a few dollars? Pick away a few dollars. Week by week. Now, you know, when the Barbados Labour Party was in power between 94 and 93, you were able to save money. You were able to provide a safety net for yourself. Well, thank God you were able to provide that safety net, because you need that safety net today. And all over Barbados, Barbadians are having to dip into their bank accounts, take out a few $100s to help pay this bill. And you know what's happening? You are not even earning enough. You are not even earning enough to put it back. We as a country have been brought, the people of this nation have been brought to their knees. But we are proud people, and the Barbados Labour Party is here to reach out a hand and help you to stand up proud again. But you will notice a common thread in every Democratic Labour Party platform, if they manage to get the one in the Glebe started by now. And that thread is simple. In every meeting, in every speech, they are going to spend an entire speech cursing the members of the Barbados Labour Party as if we were in government for the last 5 years. And you've heard Frondell Stewart. He calls us off name by name, one by one, and says the worst things about us. Chris Sinclair calls our names one by one, says the worst things about us. But you must ask yourself why that is happening. One would have imagined that having served this country for the last 5 years, they would be able to come and say to you, this is the long list of things that we did. This is the long list of things that we did. But instead of saying to the Barbadian electorate, we have done this raft of things to improve the lives of Barbadians and we therefore deserve another chance, they are spending an entire campaign cursing the Barbados Labour Party. To me, the reason for that is simple. They have no achievements of which to boast, and even they are ashamed that all they could do is 4 roundabouts. You know, I understand that the MP for this area is taking credit for that road that passes up by Bide Mill and goes right up through St. Philip. And she and others on the DLP side are behaving as if when the government of Barbados executes a project, that they are doing the people of Barbados a favor. I want you to ask Mrs. Suku Baya, Mrs. Baya Suku, whichever one. I mean no disrespect. I want you to ask the dear lady if the money for any of the roads or facilities being done in this constituency are coming from her pocket. She wants you to believe that she is doing you a favor by providing you with a few measly facilities, by fixing a road here and a road there. I want to remind you that the money that is being used to provide those facilities, when you see a road being done, when you see a play park being done, it is done with hard-earned taxpayer dollars. It is being done with your money. So don't let any DLP person come and tell you, man, I am doing you a favor. They're not doing you any favor. They are the government, and they were elected to run this nation in a way that we could all be proud of. But instead, they have run it to the ground, and they're looking to blame the Barbados Labour Party still. Well, that's why I began my speech by telling you that Ryan Strong said that the Democratic Labour Party administration has received more revenues from the people of this country than any Barbados Labour Party administration before it. So if you receive more revenues, the people of Barbados should have something to show for it. But instead, we have nothing. But hold on, you have something. You have a hope and a dream of a better tomorrow when once the Barbados Labour Party is elected on the 21st of February. And I know that from the day David Thompson was elected and they had all of their fine celebrations and every event that they did whenever they give somebody a house key, they had a fete. You remember that? No, you know we never did that in the Barbados Labour Party. Because we did not believe that we were doing anybody any favor. When we gave somebody a house key, it was because it was an important milestone in that person's life. It was because we were causing a change in that person's circumstances. And we did not feel the need to fete. We did not feel the need to fete because it was part of our day-to-day business as a government. You fete at Christmas. If Christmas came every day, we would not celebrate the way we do, you know. You fete for unusual occurrences. You don't give somebody a key and have a big party. Apart from the fact that you're wasting taxpayers' dollars, you're invading those persons' privacy. And nobody should be standing up watching you receive a benefit from the government. Nobody. But this administration has been feting for 5 years. Feting for 5 years. But the time for feting is over. They were feting for 5 years but not working in the interests of the people. They were feting for 5 years while people were going hungry. They were feting for 5 years, but at the end of the fete, not one thing had changed about your life. It reminds me of some of the people who go to crop over fetes and they dance and party until 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they go up or stand up outside and try to figure out, well, how you can get home now? You know that happens. They're so caught up in the feting that it seems as though they almost forget the day-to-day reality of their existence. We do not operate in that way. We are not a party of feting. We are a party of hard work. We are not a party of feting. We are a party that presents solutions. We are not a party of feting. We are a party that rebuilds the fabric of society. We are a political party that seeks to ensure that university education in Barbados remains available to everybody who wants one. We are a party that wants to make sure that your health care remains free. We are a party that wants to make sure that educational standards are met in our secondary schools and that we do not have to take up money and waste it on inquiries on Alexandra. And if you hear any emotion in my voice, it is for no other reason that I know that you are in pain and that it pains you to see the Dems making a laughing stock of the exercise that we are engaged in. In another 14 days, I want you to go to the polls. Carry along your brother, your sister, mother, father, any relative, any friend. I want you to spend the next 14 days